Hello and welcome to another episode of the Dio Samuel Report. I am Dio Samuel, just as the podcast says, and today I want to walk you through combining your passions into a profitable niche. And of course, we started this conversation on this podcast from episode 1, talking about how generalists, how jack of all trades, they master one skill. And then we went from how jack of all trades, how they build businesses. We've talked about how jack of all trades also how they master multiple skills in less time, unlike regular people. And today what I want to do is simply to let you understand that you can actually combine your passions into a profitable niche. So whether you're interested in many things like I have been, how to combine your passions into many things is what I want to walk you through today. And to give you a head start here, I want to welcome you to another episode of the Dio Samuel Report. And today we are going to be talking about that. Again, this is being recorded live. So if you're joining me live, thank you very much for being here. All right, so let's talk about jack of all trades, multipotentialites, polymath, generalist, how you can combine your passions into a profitable niche. I'd like to start off this conversation by first saying that jack of all trades, they specialize on specific problems. Jack of all trades specialize on specific problems. So unlike specializing in terms of activity, in terms of what they do, in my experience and in working with a lot of people, what I found is that jack of all trades specialized based on the problem they want to solve. So it means that whether you're passionate about subject A or passionate about subject B does not really matter. What matters most is that you are able to combine all of them, your different passions, into a single niche that becomes uniquely yours. And I'm going to try and explain what and how to make that happen for you today. All right, so let's talk about that. So jack of all trades, just as I said, jack of all trades specialize on specific problems. That's how they become a master of something. Now, in order for jack of all trades to specialize in, let me give you a couple of examples. And I was actually reading, I was watching the Testament of Moses on Netflix, and that became very interesting for me as I was watching it. What was going on at the back of my mind was more like, so the Moses that everybody knows and talk about actually is a multipotentialite, is a jack of all trades. Let me explain and let me show that to you. So you find, looking at that story, you find that Moses was described as a shepherd. In fact, he actually started off as a prince. He started off as an Israelite guy. Then he became a prince. Then he ran away and went into the bush and became a shepherd. When he became a shepherd, what happened was he became a prophet from doing that. Now, he became a prophet by reason of God's calling upon his life. So you find that Moses was a shepherd. Shepherd is a specialization. Moses was a writer, because if he didn't know how to write, he wouldn't have been able to capture the entire history of the earth, the entire history of human, and to be able to put it together as a collection called the Septuagint. Now, you also find that eventually, because he grew up under princehood, he became, when he was going to identify as an Israelite, he became an Israelite undercover, and then he became a political champion because he wanted to rescue his nation from the claws of slavery, more like what Martin Luther King and the likes and Nelson Mandela were trying to achieve during their days. So Moses was actually trying to do it at that time. So what you find is that if you look at Moses' life and the kind of things that he was able to do, you will notice that he actually went to each of them one after the other. As a shepherd, that gave him the advantage of leadership. He was able to lead people. He was able to guide people and tell people what to do part-time, because he had experience from doing that as a shepherd. As a prince, he was able to learn how to write. Well, because he learned how to write, he became a knowledge worker who was able to capture knowledge from the beginning of time, even before he was born, to the point where he was able to the point where he died. He was able to capture all of that knowledge. And while I was watching the Testament of Moses, there was a point where when Moses came back to meet the Israelites, and he was asked, and he told them that if they have any questions, they should ask him. And it happened that one person asked the question that the person asked, I can't even recall the question the person asked, but he answered with a very interesting answer. He said something about Joseph, about Abraham, about Jacob, and it's mentioned things about them. And the people were smiling, the people were nodding. And at that point, it became clear to me that Moses, because he had the princehood privilege, he was able to become a knowledge worker. So he was able to harmonize all the years of history. He was able to condense that together into something that became meaningful to people when they were listening to him. Now, I'm explaining this because I need to get to somewhere so that you'll understand how to combine all of your different passions, all of your different skills, all of your different interests into a profitable niche that is uniquely yours. Because over time, what has happened is we that are polymaths, we that are jack of all trades, we tend to be told that because we are jack of all trades, we want to do everything. But the interesting thing is you can actually be everything. But you can be everything in a very systemized manner, in a very systemic way. So that's exactly what I'm trying to get you to. So if you're joining me live, thank you very much. And you find that, okay, so I've talked about him being a shepherd. I've talked about him being a writer. Let's talk about Moses being a political person, a political leader. You find that when he was in the house of Pharaoh, Moses was basically an Israelite undercover. He was learning and taking in things from the Egyptians, royalty, not just the general Egyptians, from royalty. And because he was doing that, he was learning strategy. He was learning what it means to develop a strategy. He was learning what it means to talk a certain way, to speak a certain way, to address royalty. He knew in fact, because he grew up with the person who eventually became Pharaoh, when he came back to Israel, he had the insider information that only Moses could possess. Aaron could not have such information. You also find that eventually through his journey, he became a prophet, which is where things like creative intelligence begins to play out. Because he became a prophet, he had access to a creative intelligence that was able to tell him, okay, throw the rod on the floor and it's going to become, in fact, I don't think it's actually written that it's going to become a snake. So throw the rod on the floor and I will take care of the rest, something like that. And then he threw on the floor and it became a snake. And he swallowed up the snakes of the other magicians. Or, as depicted in the Testament of Moses on Netflix, he actually killed the snakes of those other magicians. Now, you will notice all of what I'm sharing here is that the person who Moses became is a combination of all that he is, not just a part of. In fact, if I'm going to add here, Moses was also a family man because he had children, he had kids. So he was able to play the role of a husband. He was able to play the role of a father. Let me bring that here and make it a little bit clear to you. So he was able to play the role of a father. He was able to play the role of a husband. He was husband to the daughter of Jethro. He was father to the kids that he gave birth to. So you find that Moses, even though he's just one example, you find that over time, you'll find all of this splattered everywhere. Now, what can we learn from this entire life of Moses? Let me show you what you can learn here. So let's say you are interested in art. You are interested in design. You are interested in, let's say, coaching. And let me use practical examples so that so I had a live workshop yesterday with some of the people who were beta testing the course that I'm working on, which is the niche mastery method. I beta tested it with some people yesterday, and they loved what the course was about. They loved what some of the tasks that they've taken in the course so far. And I'm just going to be using one person's information here. Of course, you don't know the person, so there's privacy here. So teaching. So let's add teaching here. Let's add reading. I know you don't know that reading is a skill. Writing is a skill. For example, I am not so good at writing, even though I love to write. I love to write because that's how I capture, that's how I dump things in my head on paper. But writing is not a super skill of mine. So you find that if you are interested in all of this, let me add another thing here. Let's say neuroscience. Let me add behavioral change. So let's say you're also interested in behavioral change. What you find is these are how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you are interested in 8 different things. Which of them are you very good at? Now, the way to create a niche out of all of these different things you're interested in, let's even choose topics. So let's say you're interested in subjects like somebody told me today, let's say sex therapy. Let's say sex therapy. I don't know if that's going to be censored, but so let's say you're interested in all of this. Is this 1, 2, 3, 4? What you will need to do is, first of all, dump everything on paper like this. And then there's a test, there's an assessment test that I'm going to introduce you to. By the end of this episode, I'm going to add the link to that. Actually, let me put it on screen right now. Let me put that on screen for everybody so that in case you want to get that, you can get the free. So I think I should write that, join the course waitlist at /waitlist. So this is where to get the course in case you want to. So let's add that. So you can join the course waitlist for you to have access to the course. It's a free email course that you can get started with right away. But it's not available yet till the middle of April. That's when it's going to be available. So you can simply go to www.dayosamuel.com/waitlist, and it's going to ask you to input your email so that you can be a part of that course once I finish up all the modifications that I got from the workshop yesterday. All right, moving on from there. So if you list all your skills here, what you want to do next is you want to actually narrow down all of these skills into very vital skills that can separate you from everybody. How do you do that? There are 4 tests that you simply need to do. First test is the test of. So first test will be the test of what's the growth potential. How much can you grow if you are? How well can you grow if you take this? If you consider this. So let me write it as growth potential. So that will be, you want to judge it on 1. 2 will be your depth of interest. How deeply interested are you in that subject? How much of interest do you have? And the simple thing is you can literally just rate it on a scale of 0 to 10. So I'm going to show you what that is. And then number 3, you want to rate it on level of comfort. So level of comfort, how comfortable are you talking about it? How comfortable are you identifying with that skill or that interest? And then number 4 will be how excited. So you want to use excitement as the 4th. So let's call it excitement factor. So these will be the 4 things that you are going to be using to judge each of them. So let's say for this art here, let me change my pen. So for art, let's say growth potential will be maybe a 2. Depth of interest, maybe a 4. Level of comfort will be how comfortable am I talking about it? How natural do I feel talking about it? Maybe that will be a 5. And then what's the excitement factor? That will be maybe a 4. Now, notice I'm rating it on a scale of 0 to 10. Then you do the same for design. Design, growth potential may be 3. Depth of interest will be 10. Level of comfort, 10. Excitement factor is 10. Let's say coaching is growth potential 10, depth of interest 10, 10, 10. Teaching 10, 10, 10, 10. Now I'm rating this. I'm just rating it randomly, but also considering a couple of things. So writing, for example, growth potential. Let's say I can grow in writing. How interested am I in writing? 2, level of comfortability talking about writing. I don't even want to talk about it at all. Or let me put a 1. Then excitement factor. How excited are you about writing? Well, I'm going to put a 4. Now, neuroscience, as you can see, once you begin to access each of them like this, what you find is you eventually find what I call your top 3 skills. And the good part is that this entire assessment, I've actually created a way for you to sort through it, and you can actually get that if you go to diasamuel.com/waitlist. Again, I'm going to put that in the show notes for this episode. Now, what you find is once you do that assessment, what happens is if your top skills, based on what I've rated here, so let's say this is 40, which of them looks like this is 33. So these 3 will probably be my top 3 skills. Now, this is not exactly correct about me. Okay, so this is just sampling. So that means design, coaching, teaching are my top 3 skills. Let's say based on all of this rating here, let's say that is my top 3 skills. Now, what happened to all of these other skills? What happened to art? What happened to neuroscience? What happened to behavioral change? What happened to sex therapy, for example? What happens is all of these other skills now support these your top skills, so that if you are talking about design, in coaching, you can match that with behavioral science. In teaching, you can talk about neuroscience because you understand how information works in the brain. So, for example, right now, you probably may be absorbing this in a very interesting way. Maybe that's because I also understand the neuroscience of education, the neuroscience of taking in information. Maybe that's why. So you find that your top 3 skills now become design, coaching, teaching. Now, if we look back to the story of Moses that I shared earlier on, the fact that Moses could be a shepherd, Moses could write, Moses could serve as a political guy, he could be a prophet, that didn't make sense until Moses was able to apply that to a specific problem. What was the problem Moses applied all of his skills to? Simple. He applied it to liberating, or let's call it the liberation of Israel. So that became the entire thing Moses spent the rest of his life focusing on. Now, notice Moses did not niche. If this is niching down, Moses did not focus on a niche of, okay, I'm going to play just being a shepherd because they say that everybody should niche down. You should niche down. You should niche down. Moses did not focus on that. Moses did not focus on writing as well. Of course, he wrote the 10 Commandments because he is a writer. By the way, some people say it's the finger of God that wrote it. Yes, I agree, it's the finger of God that wrote it. But he wouldn't have been able to tell the story of how the finger of God wrote it if he is not a writer. If he doesn't have the capacity to visualize things and write the actual detail. And of course, the Kabbalion, there are a lot of books. Lost books of the Bible, hidden books of the Garden of... There are a lot of books that actually add context to the stories. For example, many years I did not know why... For many years, I did not know why. For many years, I didn't understand why. So maybe I should skip that. Maybe I should not tell that because it might lead us down a path here. But what I want you to understand is what Moses did was bringing all of his different skills together. He focused it on solving a problem, the liberation of Israel. What you want to do as well is you want to take all of your top 3 skills and you want to identify a specific problem that you are going to be solving. If you can solve that problem for the rest of your life, there is a lot of money to be made. Because the thing is, it's one thing to be very good at something, it's another thing for what you are good at to solve problems for people. But more importantly, it's also another thing for you to be able to monetize that. How do I mean? You will notice that I've talked about three things. There's some, you can be very good at something, which is A, you may be able to find a problem, which is B. But once you are able to monetize it, that becomes C. Once you can create these three connections, you can make money for the rest of your life. You can be profitable in any way that you choose. Now, you may be wondering, so how do I do that? How do I know? What you should do is you should actually draw a Venn diagram like this and put design. So this is design here. So this is design. If you put design here, you say coaching here, coaching, and you put teaching here. What you want to start trying to find out or figuring out is what are the overlaps. If you combine design and coaching together, what problem can you solve? If you combine teaching and coaching together, what problems can you solve? And by the way, just to mention, teaching and coaching are not the same thing. Coaching, you don't pour information on somebody. Teaching, that's where you pour information on somebody. Coaching is basically facilitating someone's discovery of things. And that's the part that hurts me or kind of infuriates me when people online say that they are coaches, and what they are literally doing is they're basically creating online courses, and they do not have a coaching relationship with the clients that they say they are coaching, and they are just creating courses, creating content, and they call themselves coaches. That's not what coaching is. But again, that's a conversation perhaps that we may have at another time. Now, design and teaching, it means you probably, so off the top of my head right now, it probably means you can teach design. So it means you can teach design. And coaching and teaching, maybe you can coach teachers or you can teach coaching. I don't know, depending on how you choose. And here, it means you can work with designers, you can coach designers. So maybe coaching designers might be what is here. That could be the problem that you want to solve. And here it could be teach others how to coach. So you can teach others how to coach. And here you are coaching designers. And here you are teaching design. You can see how that comes together to solve problem. Now, once you are able to identify that, what happens is you create a very, very unique niche that takes advantage of your top 3 skills, and that makes you a unique product, a unique person in the market. So the thing is that when you are able to identify these 3 things and you're able to bring it together, what happens is you create what I call a category of one, or a niche of one, where you are the niche, where you are the only person who can do what you can do. Because, of course, what I've combined here right now may resonate with someone else. You may even find 2-3 other persons who have this same combination of skills, but you'll probably not find them in the same proportion. That is, maybe one person might have coaching as 30, have teaching as 20, have design as maybe a 2 or maybe a 5. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So what you find is you create a way for you to be singled out, unique. You create your own category of one. You create your own niche of one, where you are just the only person who can do exactly the combination of things that you've identified. Now, this is basically you identifying your top 3. There's a concept I teach called talent stacking. Now, when I talk about talent stacking, and the good part is I heard this labeling from the creator of Dilbert. Now, for me, talent stacking, I took the concept from blockchain. And if you consider what stacking means, it means you have things stacked upon each other. So this could be layer 0, this could be layer 0, this could be layer 1, and this could be layer 2. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, so let me bring back my screen here. So this could be layer 2, layer 0, layer 1. Now, what you find is that your most base talents, your most vital skills will always be part of your, so this is where your top 3 skills, this is where you find your top 3 skills will be your layer. They are, in blockchain, they call them base layers. So base layer example of that will be a blockchain example of that will be Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a base layer blockchain. You can build on top of it, but you can't chunk it down further. You can't break it down further. So it's the base layer. It's the reason why it was the first that it was worked on. It's a base layer blockchain. And because it's a base layer, same thing as your talent, same thing as your skill, same thing as your passions, your interest, the different things that you can do. If you put them together, what happens is you create your base layer. Your base layer talent is that talent that if you find yourself anywhere in the world, you can always shine. You can always play a bigger game. You can always, at least nobody can confuse you, nobody can shake you. That is what your base layer does. Now you'll notice that all these other talents here, even though you also rated them, what you find is you find top 3. So you find top 3. You find maybe a next, maybe 3, 4 thereabout, and then you find very low scores. You find some that have low scores. Now, for those low scores, what you do is you put them here. Low scores come up here, the mid-range. So the mid-range skills now become part of your talent stack. So what happens is, if you wanted to create your niche, you create your niche based on this base stack here, base layers here, then your mid-range and your low scores begin to add context to these top 3 skills. So when you are teaching, so let's say you are teaching coaching, or let me say you are coaching designers, what happens is you help them understand neuroscience. You bake in neuroscience, you bake in arts. As you're teaching designers, you're helping them understand how art works. So for example, it could be maybe elements of art. You come again, you look at it and say, okay, writing. You say, okay, in order to reach them, you are writing. Are you getting what I'm explaining here? So none of your skill is actually a waste. All of your skills have a place once you can organize them. And once you can organize them into layer 0, layer 1, layer 3, it becomes easier for you to create a niche. And as you create a niche, what happens is you eventually find that you are the only person that can combine all of these skills the way you are literally combining them. So in my own case, just to tell you a little bit about myself here, what happens is while research, content, and design are my base layers, what happens is I have others like neuroscience, behavioral change, just as I listed here. So I have others like neuroscience, behavioral change. Now, I'm not interested in this, so let me cancel it out. I have neuroscience, behavioral change. I have teaching, coaching. Those are other skills that are on top of this research, content, and design. Do you understand? Now, the interesting thing is that I have created a niche for myself as a research, content, and design strategist. If you literally Google that, you'll probably not be able to find anybody else. I have tried, so maybe you should try. I've literally Googled that, and I've not been able to find anybody else worldwide who is a combination of research, content, and design strategist. Nobody else. So maybe there is a research strategist. Maybe there are content strategists. Of course, content strategist is even a career. Maybe they are design strategists. But one person who is a combination of research, content, and design strategy, the 3 of them combined together, I've not been able to find. That is where I was able to combine all my different passions into a profitable niche. And I believe each person can do that. Every jack of all trade, every multipotentialite, every polymath can actually do that. Find the skills that you excel in the most. use the assessment I've just shared with you now. And if you want that assessment, you can actually go to dayosamuel.com/waitlist, and you'll be able to get access to the course that will help you understand how to utilize the assessment, and again, how to actually use AI like ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity to actually figure out the problems that you can solve. I hope that this has been helpful to you. I hope that this is useful to you. As I wrap up, I want you to remember that jack of all trade is better than jack of one, because jack of all trade can bring unique angles, different perspectives that will help broaden or even deepen whatever you guys are talking about, whatever you are doing. I hope that this is helpful to you, and I'm going to see you in the next episode. Thank you very much to everyone who's joined me live. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next episode, where I'm going to be talking about, and the interesting thing is that I've used what's his name today, Moses, as an example. Next week, I'm going to use, in the next episode, which is going to come live next week, I'm going to use Paul as my example, and you're going to see how Paul was able to build a business out of being a jack of all trade. So I've given you an insight. I'll see you in the next episode, where we're going to be talking about how multipotentialites build businesses. I am Dayo Samuel Wasingate, and this has been the Dayo Samuel Report. I hope that today's report was useful to you. I'll see you in the next episode.